Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. How do we stop this happening again? Dover and Folkestone recover from a weekend of gridlock and 20-hour queues.
Locals in the two towns say we're paying a terrible price for being on the front line between Britain and France.
It has been absolutely horrendous and, to be honest, felt a little bit abandoned.
Also tonight, the farmer who desperately ploughed a firebreak across his crops as flames threatened to overwhelm his fields.
And the young children buzzing at the chance to help nature's busy bees. Holly visits Brighton's City of Meadows to find out more. Good evening. It's been a weekend that many will want to forget. Holiday makers, lorry drivers, people trying to get to work or go shopping, businesses in Dover, Folkestone and along the M20 corridor. Everyone trapped in queues, unable to get out of their driveways or get across the channel to France.
Well, both the Port of Dover and Eurotunnel, the two flashpoints over the long weekend, are now flowing freely. Those trapped in their cars and lorries have now crossed to France. But there's a fear that this weekend and subsequent weekends could see similar problems. John Ryle is live for us at Dover this evening. John, let's start with the good news. Not as bad there today.
No, Matt, as you say, the Port of Dover flowing well tonight. It has been all day. Similar story at the Eurotunnel terminal at Folkestone. No real problems there. Why is that? Well, it's because we've seen a fraction of the traffic volumes that we saw over the weekend. The problem is those big numbers will be back next weekend and again through the summer. Well, Friday, Saturday and yesterday were a dreadful ordeal for thousands of holidaymakers and lorry drivers caught up in the chaos, but also a very difficult time for people living and working in Dover. And my colleague Joe Caution has been talking to some of them.
Well, from the very top all the way down through the village down to the A20, absolute logjam.
This is the first time Cheriton resident Peter Carroll has been able to walk up this narrow country lane since Thursday without being swamped by traffic trying to avoid the queues heading to the Eurotunnel.
It has been absolutely horrendous and, to be honest, felt a little bit abandoned. It feels to us as if people have probably been worrying about the big picture, about which motorway is open or which motorway is closed. But we're local people, local communities. And if I tell you, it's been distressing. I mean, I personally saw families who've been on the road for 6 hours, having to use toilet facilities in local hedgerows, one even on my garden gate. And to be honest, I'm not offended by that because they were desperate. And God forbid we needed an emergency service vehicle, an ambulance, a fire engine, whatever. It just could not have physically got through, which is also very troubling for local residents.
Well, the scenes here in Dover are a far cry from what we saw here on Friday, traffic flowing freely through the town. But that doesn't mean the situation is resolved. There's warnings about more congestion this weekend, and there's real concerns from businesses who have been here for generations about their future. Sarah Mannell runs a Chandler's Merchants that has been a feature in Dover since 1860. They've become accustomed to dealing with heavy congestion, but financially, it's starting to tie them up in knots.
We're a poor seaside town. We need to get visitors to us, and it's just giving Dover an incredibly bad name. It's a beautiful seaside town. We've got lovely new cafes and bars and restaurants, and lovely new marina. We need to get people here. It is terribly, terribly frustrating, and obviously, you know, the bottom line, the margins are down due to it.
Are you worried?
Yes, I am worried about the future of Dover and the future of this business. Yes, I am, yeah.
If you don't level up Dover, you level down the whole of the UK. Let's remember 17% of goods by value that come into this country come through Dover. It is not only important for this area, it's important for the whole of the country.
Patience is running out among residents and businesses in East Kent, and ahead of another busy weekend, many are asking how much longer they need to put up with travel despair on their doorstep. Joe Caution, ITV News, Dover.
Well, let's go back to John Ryle in Dover. Thousands of people affected by this in East Kent. And John, we heard people in Joe's report saying they're worried about the future. You've been talking to people who can make long-term decisions about the future. What are they telling you?
Yes, high-level meetings have been taking both sides of the channel today about how to deal with this new post-Brexit reality of lengthy border checks that are crippling this port whenever it's busy. And earlier I spoke to the leader of Dover District Council and also to the head of Kent's Resilience Forum, who's charged with minimising all this chaos. And he admitted that the options ahead are pretty limited.
Overall, we're very limited on what can be done. We know here at the port they've got limited space. We can't suddenly open up loads more booths and loads more space, same at Eurotunnel. So it's really dealing with what we've got as best we can and making sure that we're communicating what we're doing, etc., etc.
The long-term future is probably building things, but they're not going to happen overnight. We need lorry parks, but they're not going to happen that quickly. We need improvements to the Whitfield roundabout, the Duke of York roundabout, and we need improvements to the A2. But all of those things take time, so we need the government to help us now. Next weekend, we're told, is going to be even busier. I mean, that is quite a scary thought, so everybody, needs to help and work with us.
Freight backlog, of course, those long lorry queues that we saw over the weekend were a big feature of what happened, and the solution there, according to the body that represents hauliers, well, they say there really is only one solution.
Well, the short straits are always going to pose some challenges in terms of resilience, but what we need to do is make sure they are as resilient as possible, that if there are delays, that drivers have access to welfare facilities. We need more lorry parking in Kent in any case, and of course there's always that knock-on impact for people that working in a county, living in a county, and of course the freight that needs to service Kent as well.
Well, we've also been speaking to the Dover MP, and like bosses at the port here, she puts a lot of the blame for what happened at the weekend at the door of the French. She says they failed to properly crew up for the new passport booths that are now available here. She says much better cooperation with the French is going to be absolutely key in the months ahead, but she suspects it's going to be hard to come by. She also wants a major new investment in infrastructure.
What we need going forward, though, is not just to rely on the French to do the right thing and speed through the processes. We've got to make sure we have the infrastructure ourselves to manage any of those difficult situations that we have with the French. And that means investing in the borders, investing in the roads, cutting through the bureaucracy that stops national infrastructure being delivered, and get on and make our roads and ports resilient and stronger for the future.
So no real clear consensus about the way ahead, but a general agreement that it's going to be a long road and an expensive one.
OK, John, a complicated issue and a frustrating one for people who live nearby, but for now, thank you.
Some are blaming Brexit for this problem, the extra checks that have been forced on us since leaving the European Union.
But Boris Johnson today said Brexit was not to blame. His spokesperson said the weekend's problems were down to a combination of factors, including a shortage of French border control staff.
To Westminster then, and Phil Hornby. So Phil, if number 10 is correct and there is no shortage of staff next weekend, that's summer sorted, isn't it?
I wish it was as easy as that. As you say, some people, including the government, are blaming the French. Other people are blaming Brexit, including the doyen of travel writers here, Simon Calder. You say this is to do with Brexit, and we should have known this was going to happen.
Look, it was absolutely foreseeable that at the first proper great getaway since COVID, since Brexit, there was going to be a significant issue with the increased transaction time that you get. It's absolutely inevitable we would get some of that. Of course, the French didn't help by failing to show up when they were due to or expected on Friday morning, and that helped build up all the queues that we saw over the weekend. But anybody who feels that it's exactly the same as when we were in the EU but outside Schengen, it most definitely isn't.
Why can't you just have loads more booths?
Well, because anybody who's seen the Port of Dover knows that they've done miracles compressing so much into so small a site. Look, none of the infrastructure in South East Kent was put there thinking, oh, well, we'll be outside the EU one day. You would need completely to rethink the road system. You'd have to do amazing things at Dover and at Folkestone Eurotunnel.
So in the short term, you're basically saying there's no answer. We're going to have weekend after weekend of this.
No, I think there will be some leakage away from Kent to the Western Channel ports. I think a number of people might think, OK, we will risk the airlines or go by Eurostar. But when the people of the UK, including Kent, voted for Brexit, they voted for a hard border with the European Union in Kent.
Briefly, do you think we're relying too much on Dover now? I remember catching ferries from Ramsgate, Sheerness, Folkestone and so on in the past.
Oh, certainly. I think there is plenty of space for an operator nimbly to come in and offer a service from Ramsgate or from Sheerness to Flushing in the Netherlands. I think we will actually see more of these perhaps coming up right around the coast.
OK, Simon Calder, thank you very much indeed. We will, of course, let you know how this story develops.
Phil, thank you.
The mother of a 12-year-old boy from Southend left in a coma from brain damage says she will keep fighting despite Court of Appeal judges saying his life support can be switched off. 3 appeal judges upheld a ruling from the High Court judge who decided doctors could lawfully stop treating Archie Battersby.
A man has been arrested following a series of sexual assaults being reported on Brighton Beach last week. Sussex police say they received reports of a group of men assaulting and harassing women and girls last Tuesday afternoon. A 32-year-old man from London was arrested on suspicion of sexual assault and released on bail.
Arriva bus drivers in Kent and Essex are balloting for strike action in a dispute over pay. It's after a 7.8% pay increase was rejected. If the strike goes ahead, it could begin next month. The Unite union says it would cause real disruption to the bus network across both counties.
Next, the quick thinking of a farmer from Kent who, faced with his neighbour's burning field, jumped in his tractor to plough a fire break.
Well, along with dozens of firefighters, farmer Bill Alexander helped save nearby houses and cattle from the flames. Abigail Bracken went to meet him.
A 50-acre field almost all alight. Apart from a small section, this tractor is trying to save from the flames by ploughing a fire break just yards from the fire. And as farmer Bill Alexander has done this once before, he says he wasn't worried.
I was too close once or twice, but that's, yeah. It was warm. It's all right all the while you can see where the fire is. Occasionally the smoke blows across and you can't see where it is. That's the only really worrying time.
The fire in Lenham near Maidstone destroyed £40,000 worth of barley, which had been ready for harvesting. But the fire break stopped the flames from jumping to other fields and houses. Here you can clearly see how ploughing the field created a fire break. On this side where the field was ploughed, the tinder dry straw was buried and unable to burn. But on this side where it wasn't ploughed, everything is ashes. The land's owner wants everyone to be careful with barbecues and bonfires when the countryside is so dry. Few of us have a neighbour with a tractor so quick to help.
Standing here now, you think it's all calm and everything. When you come down here and there's flames up above your head and the wind's blowing it and smoke everywhere, you think, how on earth are we going to put it out? And I said that to the chief fireman at the end when it was all calm, and he said, well, cultivating, making the fire break makes all the difference.
There were 40-odd firemen here in full fire protective gear with hoses and backpacks putting it out by hand. And they're the ones that really did the work. They do it every day. I just did something for an hour or so.
But an hour's work he's hoping not to repeat for a third time. Abigail Bracken, ITV News, Lenham.
You're watching ITV News Meridian. Thanks for watching us. Coming up, we'll meet the teenagers from Hastings and a new RNLI campaign.
And it's certainly a very different forecast to this time last week. But how are the next few days shaping up? I'll have all the details.
More on all of our stories today, of course, on our website. itv.com/Meridian is the address. There's the phone number if you'd like to get in touch, 0808 1010 095. And as ever, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram.
And the ITV Evening News continues here at 6:30 with a preview now, Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the programme, shame for Scottish cricket. A damning report's found hundreds of examples of institutional racism. Those who endured it say future players must not go through the same abuse. What next for the family of 12-year-old Archie Battersby after judges rule doctors can stop his life support? We'll have all the build-up to the Euros semi-final as England prepare to take on Sweden. And It's official, the UK will host Eurovision next year. But where could it take place? Well, do join me for those stories and much more at 6:30.
A group of teenagers from Hastings are fronting a new RNLI campaign to prevent drownings in the sea. The group phoned 999 and came to the aid of a couple who got into trouble while swimming last September.
The charity has released stark figures to mark World Drowning Prevention Day. It says 277 people accidentally drowned in the UK last year.
Well, almost half of those drownings, 130 deaths, were in the summer months.
And July was the worst month when 63 people sadly lost their lives. From Hastings, here's Charlotte Wilkins.
Coast Guard Rescue.
There's a couple, they're quite old.
Yeah.
And my friends have just seen them and they've asked for help.
Are they actually in the water?
Yes.
It was a warm September day last year when, as a group of friends was sunbathing, they noticed a couple in the water who were in trouble.
And we had noticed them quite early on, but it wasn't until a bit later where we realised that they were actually struggling.
The friends stayed calm. Millie ran to get help. She called 999 and asked for the Coast Guard.
I think I was kind of like in the zone. There was a lot of like adrenaline rushing through me and I was like, these people need some help, we've got to save them kind of thing.
The teenagers then found a life ring and threw it out to the couple in distress.
We didn't want to take them up off the rocks, we just wanted to make sure they're safe so then the lifeboat could come and get them out safely. So we waited and made sure we got like towels and stuff to keep them warm.
The Friends are now fronting a new campaign called Respect the Water. One of the key messages is if you see someone in trouble, don't jump in to help.
The instinct to jump in and help can be overwhelming. Fight your instincts. Make the right call. Call 999.
Just hang on there, stay calm.
What they did was absolutely fantastic. It was perfect. They put their safety first, and that's so important. So they went out, they reached out to them, they shouted to the swimmers, they called 999, asked for the Coast Guard, and that's everything we're asking everyone to do. So it's incredible, really inspiring.
Last year, 277 people drowned accidentally in the UK, and half of those were during the summer months. But of course, it's not just the sea which poses a danger. Many people lost their lives in lakes, rivers and reservoirs. And it's cold water shock, which is all too often a major factor. How did you feel about the fact that ultimately you saved their lives?
I think it's quite an achievement, and I'm one of the oldest people that were there. Some of my other friends were only 13 years old and still like got down on the rocks to help them. I think it's really important that young people know what to do in a situation like that.
Charlotte Wilkins, ITV News.
Well, the Royal National Lifeboat Institute and Her Majesty's Coast Guard have been leading a safety campaign on this and say they're expecting an extremely busy summer ahead.
Well, we can talk to Ross McLeod from the RNLI. Ross, what we don't want to do is to discourage people from visiting the incredible coastline we have across our region. You can see a beautiful scene in the background there where you are. But what is the safety message that you want to get across to people?
So the safety message from the RNLI for your viewers is to try and swim at a life-guarded beach, and when you're here, please swim between the red and yellow flags. As you said, we've got some beautiful coastline along the south coast, and we'd really encourage people to come down and make the most of this good weather that we're having. But we want people to stay safe and go home with positive memories, so really encourage people to swim at a life-guarded beach and stay between the red and yellow flags.
There was a stat I saw that was a little bit worrying. It said that of the thousands of people assisted by the RNLI last summer, the largest group that you helped were children under the age of 13, which is quite a sobering thought, particularly for parents watching tonight. What are the top tips, either for young people or for their parents, to try and get across to make sure they can enjoy the coastline safely?
Yeah, so of the lives saved by our lifeguards last summer, 39% were of children of under 13. So I think the message really is for parents particularly is if you can come to a lifeguarded beach, that's brilliant, but obviously don't take your eyes off your children while you're here. And there's some really important information for children particularly around 4 key messages to keep in mind. The first is staying together. So when you're at a lifeguarded beach, try and stay close to your adult and try and head to a lifeguarded location. The next one is around sort of swimming in supervised places. So when you're here, the red and yellow flags signify the area that's the safest place to swim. So try and stay together, and that way there's always a lifeguard close by if something was to go wrong. The next is if you find yourself in difficulty for whatever reason, remember float to live. And this is when you lie back in the water, extend your arms and legs a bit like a starfish and just float there, try and rest and relax best you can until a lifeguard can come and help you. And the final one is if you see somebody else in trouble in the water, to dial 999. If you're at the coast, you ask for the Coast Guard, or if you're inland, maybe at a lake, a reservoir, canal, ask for the fire service.
Ross, that is absolutely brilliant advice. That's really important to get that across. We're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for talking to us on the programme. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely good advice. Holly has joined us now. Holly, you have been busy this year because you've been doing a project helping our bees. And how's it going?
That's right. So back in the spring, you might remember I planted up a wildflower patch. I was encouraging other people to do the same thing. And I thought we could have a check-in on it because I can officially reveal, take a look at this, that we have one flower.
Better than no flowers.
Well, I'm hoping it's going to be the start of something beautiful, but yeah, bit of a late bloomer. Thankfully, the bees haven't just been reliant on me because lots of people across our region have been planting up their gardens and their communities to help out our pollinators, including the youngsters from Mile Oak Primary School. I went to film with them last week and they showed me just what they've been up to. This is Mile Oak Primary School. They've been working hard to help our bees, and let me tell you, they certainly know a thing or two about pollinators. Oh, what have you got there?
Me and my friend Mally have just found a bee by the flowers over there in the meadow.
And can you tell me why bees are so important?
Bees are important because they help pollinate flowers and plants, and they help sustain the growth of fruit and vegetables.
Oh, you found a butterfly. Do you know what it is?
I think it's a meadow brown.
And do you know that butterflies are pollinators too?
Yeah, they help bring pollen to all the other flowers and things, and they help out the bees. So I think it's also really important to look out for other pollinators and not just the ones that everyone else knows.
We had to clear all the brambles, then the Wildlife Trust helped us with the seeds. The seeds grew over the Easter holidays and now we have a nice colourful space.
This is all part of a wider project called the City of Meadows, which aims to create a network of wildflower habitats linking Brighton to the South Downs. So Katie, you've been leading this project and working really hard, getting a whole range of different schools involved in it, haven't you?
Yes, that's right. So we've got 30 schools in the city that have created meadows. Some schools have got no base, so they've created a meadow in a pot or a raised bed. Others are much larger. And these meadows not only are fantastic habitat for pollinators, but they're also a really rich resource for schools to use to enhance the curriculum.
That looks like a grasshopper.
Once the pollinators have been enticed in by the wildflowers, it's only a short hop to the school's vegetable garden. Jess, why has this been such a great thing for the kids to be involved with?
Well, from the very beginning, we wanted to be involved as a school because not only does it add an extra resource to our school for the kids to learn, but also it links very well in the area of the garden where we grow all our own food, and it teaches children from the very beginning how food is produced and how important the pollinators are in that process.
And the school are helping pollinators in other ways, as explained by the highly appropriately named Bee Beatty. Can you tell me about what this is?
This is the bee hotel where we see all the bees come in and out, and they've blocked up all the holes to lay their eggs.
Now Logan and Renelle, you've got an amazing vegetable patch here and we've been learning all about how pollinators help our fruit and veg to grow. Logan, can you tell me what you've got here?
So over here we've got some kale, there's some pumpkins over there, and over here we've got some sweet corn and some leeks and some lettuce.
So Renelle, what have you been doing to look after all of this veg?
We've been watering it every 2 days, and since there's lots of sun, it's been getting really healthy. We've picked up the potatoes. We're going to harvest it later to sell on a stall for the parents after school.
With youngsters like these so knowledgeable about pollinators and passionate about helping them, maybe the future of our bees and butterflies could be looking up after all.
Well, it's fantastic to see the children taking such pride in their garden. And you want some help from viewers, is that right?
That's right. Do you know, they were amazing. They were so clued up. It was so passionate. It was fantastic. But yes, I do. I'd love to see what other people are up to, what they've been planting in their gardens and their communities to help our pollinators out. And they can email me at meridianweather@itv.com. But I also want to talk to you today about just how dry it's been. We, of course, have already seen the stories at the top of the programme, and I thought we'd take a look at some of the figures associated with the small amount of rainfall that we've seen. Take a look at this map. This shows you just how dry we've had it. So across the southeast, this dark brown colour, this indicates less than 20% of the average rainfall of July. Would normally be up at about 77% at this time of year. But if you zoom down into the details, it's even worse. Kent, 1.9 millimetres of rain this month, just 4% of the average. East Sussex, even less than that, 3% of the average. And this comes on top of a dry winter, a dry spring. So yes, we've had a lot of dry weather, and I'm afraid, apart from a few showers, not an awful lot of rainfall in sight either.
Let's see what's on its way. Here's Holly with your forecast.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Well, this time last week I was warning of the hottest day since records began. This week, quite a different story, much more typical for the time of year. We'll have some spells of sunshine, often a bit on the cloudy side, but that will come and go a bit, as I say, to give us some brightness. Some showers around as well. We've had some today, some more in the forecast, for example, tomorrow, and a few more as the week wears on. But overall, a decent amount of dry weather in store. And not as warm. Certainly not as warm as we saw at the beginning of last week, but also not as warm as the weekend, where some of us are up into the high 20s. But this is what's going on. So we've got this high that's moving in from the west. That's going to give us a relatively settled outlook. As I say, we have got some showers. And then as the week wears on, we do start to pick up slightly more of a southerly drift, and that will bring some warmer air our way. So we will notice those temperatures rising later in the week. Some showers still lurking out there, quite a blustery wind as well. Both of those tend to ease, so turning drier. The wind's easing down, starry skies for a time, although you can see just a bit more cloud there starting to work in as we edge towards dawn. 15 degrees or so, or 14 to 16, something like that, your low, probably a little bit lower than we saw last night for most. Into tomorrow morning, perhaps quite a cloudy start, some showers around, but I do think it will tend to brighten up as we head through the day. Always this chance of some further showers, but also some spells of sunshine. Temperatures on the thermometers a little lower than today, but the wind's a bit lighter too. Our high tide times, we've got Margate there at 11:39 and again at 11:57 into the evening. And I think overall a fairly settled look. As I say, some showers around at times, varying amounts of clouds, some spells of sunshine, but those temperatures edging upwards.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Now, you might not be suffering with hay fever in the same way as perhaps many of us were earlier on in the summer. That's because grass pollen has edged down to low, but we have still got moderate levels of weed pollen. Take care.
And that's it from us for the time being. The ITV Evening News is next with Mary Nightingale.
Matt will have your late update just after 10:30, and the team will be back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.